Hey everyone, my name is Abdel Misa and welcome. One of my favorite investors of all time is Warren Buffett. There is a reason they call him the Oracle of Omaha. Warren Buffett just held like the annual shareholder meeting, and I wanted to give you 5 takeaways from the meeting with my own analysis. I took a lot of notes, and so I spent a lot of time. I would appreciate if you can click on the like, subscribe, and the notification bell. I appreciate it so much. So, takeaway number 1. Buffett remains bullish on the stock market and the US economy over the long term. So here are some quotes. All right, so he's saying, we faced great problems in the past, World War II, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the events of September 11, 2011, and the global financial crisis. It's like we have not faced anything like this exact problem. He's talking about the coronavirus crisis. However, we have faced tougher problems, and then the American magic has always prevailed, and it will do so again. Okay, so he remains bullish. And then he said that, look, we certainly won't be selling, and they are net buyers of stocks over time. And then one of my favorite things that he said is like, look, like if you were to pick one time and one place to be born across history, that the best thing to do is to pick right now and in the United States of America. I couldn't agree with him anymore. Takeaway number 2, Berkshire, his firm, has not repurchased any stock when prices sank in the month of March. Okay, so this is very interesting. He did mention that basically it got really interesting in March, but it was only for a very short period of time. Now, what's interesting is like, what is the market interpretation of that? So Warren Buffett is a very savvy investor, and then the market might interpret it that, look, like he has not yet found that the market maybe has not found the bottom yet, and then there might be future opportunities. And that's why, like, if you look at the futures right now, potentially that might have influenced why futures are down. The other thing that's interesting is, based on his comment, he does not look at the Berkshire stock at just like on an absolute basis. He looks at it from a relative basis as well. So basically, I believe what he does is he looks at the value of the stock, the book value of the stock relative to the market. So Berkshire owns a lot of businesses, they have a market value. So if you do a sum of the parts, and then you look at the book value of the company, then he compares it relative to where the stock is trading. So I think that's something that's really interesting, and that's when the value of the stock is really low relative to what the company owns, then he is more interested in buying back the stock. Takeaway number 3. Buffett sold his entire stakes in the airline industry, whether it's American, Delta, Southwest, and United Airlines. He has had a very interesting journey with the airline industry. He hated the business model in the past, and then finally, when prices were very competitive, where the airline players were always competing on price, then finally the fundamentals got better, and then he purchased stocks, and then he's now exiting. Now, one of the things that interesting that he said, he's like, look, the world for airlines has changed, okay, and we don't know really how the business is gonna look going forward. He did mention Keynes' famous quote, when facts change, I change, what do you do, sir? Okay, so that's interesting. And then the other thing that I will mention is my own analysis on this is like, look, with this coronavirus crisis, you can't just look at the market. There are basically industries that are potentially winners and losers, and the airline industry, according to Buffett, is definitely one of the losers, and I agree with that. I think you probably could add to it the cruise lines, the hotel industry, it's industries that will take time to recover, versus if you look at the tech industry, for example, there could be like many technology companies that enable working from home and things like that, that actually could be winners from this crisis. Takeaway number 4. I really like how Warren Buffett is analyzing the coronavirus crisis. So basically he's breaking it down into two sides. One is the health side, and then the other one is the economic slash market side. So on the health side, here is what he's saying. He's like basically that the best and worst case scenarios have been eliminated after sweeping social distancing measures were put in place. Okay, so at least like one of the ranges of probabilities that could have happened is taken away. So now, okay, so he's saying that, look, we have more information on the health side. However, on the economic side, he's saying like, look, there is still a wide range of probabilities and possibilities on the economic side, and then we do not know exactly what will happen when this voluntary shutdown is basically stopped. Okay, so he saying that, look, there is a lot of uncertainty on the economic side. So let's now expand on Warren Buffett's framework of looking at the coronavirus crisis from the lens of health and the economy. Let's start with the health side. So let me ask you this: what are some of the questions you have to ask yourself on the health to figure out whether, well, the health situation is getting better or getting worse? Okay, so let's start first with the curve. So the curve has been flattening. That's the good news. Now, however, we cannot be complacent, and we definitely have to keep an eye on that. Okay, so number 2 is testing. Okay, so here's the good news on the testing side. So the number of tests has increased. Okay, so that, but not to the level where we need it to be. And then the other thing is like now testing is going to be available by multiple providers. It's going to be basically everywhere, including CVS, Walgreens, Walmart. So that is very important. The third element here, which is very, very critical, is the treatment. Okay, so there has been recently a good news from Gilead regarding it. Remdesivir, I think that's what it's called, Remdesivir. I don't know how they come up with names like that, but I hope I got the right pronunciation. But look, anything with that has a treatment, positive news on a treatment, that's really important, because it's going to make people more comfortable to know that there is a treatment that can help save lives. And then finally is anything related to a long-term solution, such as vaccines. Today there is over 100 vaccines being developed worldwide, and then there has been a recent announcement of an operation called Warp Speed, that is by the US government, to basically speed up the development of the vaccine, with the hope to even have over 100 million doses available by the end of this year. So that will be a big deal if we can achieve that goal. Okay, so let's now look at the market slash economic lens. So obviously we have been dealing with an unfortunate huge number of job losses. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that markets are forward looking. So obviously the job losses have a direct impact on spending, but let's not forget that the markets are not going to just look at what has been happening in the past and what's happening right now. It's more like, if there is the belief that the job losses are temporary, that can be a positive for markets. Number 2 is behavioral changes, okay, to our spending. And as you know, 70% of the economy is based on consumer spending, and this coronavirus might lead to permanent behavioral changes. And this is why, as I mentioned earlier, it's really important to figure out which industries or how industries are impacted by the crisis. There are industries that are more heavily impacted, such as airlines, cruise lines, hotels, and leisure. And then industries that are less impacted, such as utilities, for example, tech, or healthcare. So you have got really to understand the impact on each industry. And then, so those are the negative things related to the economy. On the positive side, we have had massive stimulus, both on the fiscal side and on the monetary policy side. So on the fiscal side, we have already like a stimulus of almost like $3 trillion. So that's like 15% of GDP with potentially like more to come. So that's huge for the economy. And I think the government has done an excellent job like spending, because without that we will be like in serious trouble. But we do need more on that side. Hopefully we can get even an infrastructure bill as well, because that's much needed. And then finally, like the huge positive is like, look, the Fed has brought the bazooka, obviously lowering interest rates to zero, and then a bunch of quantitative easing, buying like corporate debt indirectly through the Treasury. And so if you look at the balance sheet of the Fed, okay, so it has reached, it's almost like $7 trillion. So that's a massive monetary stimulus. And you know the saying, this is like, don't fight the Fed. I think that the Fed has done an outstanding job reacting to the crisis, and they're ready to do more if needed. Takeaway number 5. Buffett is saying, look, you should bet on America, but you have to be careful how you bet on the market. So he didn't elaborate on how you can be careful, but I took away some few things. So number 1 is, he is very careful like on what I believe he's saying is like, look, you cannot mix time horizon, okay? So as we said earlier, he's very bullish on the economy and on the stock market over the long term, okay? However, that's not necessarily the case over the short term. So you basically have to be very careful. You cannot invest on short term and then the market sell off and then you exit. That's not what he's saying. He's like, look, if you have to be very careful how you implement your trades. The second thing that's important is he mentioned that, look, he does not like investing based on margins, okay? So he does not recommend to people to basically like borrow to invest in the stock market, because you could be forced to liquidate and then sell all your holdings when it's absolutely the wrong time to do so. So listen, Warren Buffett brings a lot of wisdom to the table. When he speaks, you should definitely listen. I hope you enjoyed the 5 takeaways that I put together and my own analysis. If so, make sure you like, subscribe, and then you hit that notification bell, and I will see you next time.